Now, by the way, if you don't know where to find the React Dev tools, this is what it looks like. You can just go to the Chrome Web Store, chrome.google.com/web store, and find the React developer tools. They're offered by Facebook, and you should add them. I cannot stress how important it is to have the React dev tools available when you're in active development. It makes your life so much better. But this is where to find them, in the Chrome Web Store. It's a Chrome extension. You might have to refresh your browser or whatever, but make sure you have them. It'll make your life oodles and oodles easier. Okay, so back to our application. Now we want to be able to change this value here, the active playing song. So I'm going to go ahead and reset this back to null for the time being. And then let's make sure when we click on these buttons, this button here and this button here, it'll go to the next song or the current song or whatever. And so that's going to be our next step. And to do that, we'll need some, so let's add some other handlers. Now, you can always just use this handler here, but I've often found that it makes more sense to wrap them in a handler function, just so that if you have some additional logic you need to run, you can do it there. So I'm going to say handle on next song click equals. And I'm going to say, let's say if the current song does not exist, if it's null, for instance, if not current song and current song does not equal 0. And by the way, you can also do this just by saying if current song equals null, but I tend to avoid doing that in most situations. Now, another thing here that we didn't talk about, but this variable exists here. You could just change it. You could just say, hey, current song index, keep calling it current song index is equal to whatever we want, 5, 4. Don't do this. Don't just set this variable here. You always want to update state with the state handler. Now, the reason being is that these use state, we call these hooks, by the way. If I didn't mention that before, this is the use state hook. And React has a introducing hooks section that talks about how to declare and use state without writing classes, which again, if you've never seen React before, don't worry. But this is what they're called. The term is hooks. And when we're using hooks, you always want to set hooks with the state updater, because React keeps a record of how that's happened. So modifying that here by yourself will cause React to be a little out of sync. And again, just don't do this. It's really the takeaway here. Don't do this. Instead, we just say set current song to index to 0. And we will also, let's set the status to playing, just so no matter what, whatever the status was before, it is now playing. And otherwise, if it does already exist, let's just say else set current song index to whatever the current song index currently is, +1, right? So we'll say this, +1. Now, there's a problem with this, but we're going to leave it where it is for the time being. And either case, we want to set the status to playing, so we'll just put that at the very end. And then we'll head over to our right arrow button, and we'll give it an on-click handler. And we'll say handle on next song click. Now again, if you've already seen the error that's going to happen here, good, but I want to at least show it here. So what we can do is we can press next, and we start playing automatically. It now says playing, and it gave us the whole new world. Then we go to the next song, Let It Go by in Frozen, Circle of Life in Lion King, How Far I'll Go in Moana, I'll Make a Man Out of You in Mulan, Bare Necessities, The Jungle Book. And then, what happened there? Well, we got a problem. And I can keep clicking it, right? But it's not going anywhere. The current song index is now out of bounds. It's no longer... The songs array is not long enough, right? We're trying to access a value that doesn't exist. It's longer than the length of the playlist array, or the songs array in the playlist object. And so we'll want to do a little bit of additional logic to make sure that if it's longer than the number of songs in the playlist, we just wrap around back to 0. And so there's a bunch of ways to do this. Let's do a very simple one. Let's say let next song index equals current song index +1. And we'll say if next song index is greater than or equal to props playlist.songs.length. We'll say next song index is equal to 0. So we'll just wrap it around. And then we'll set the current song index to whatever the next song index is. So I'll try that here, and I'll refresh this. And by the way, when you refresh, all of the state variables are reset. Just so you know, the state only lasts for as long as the application is currently living, and when you click refresh, it'll fetch a fresh version of your React app, and so all of those state variables you will had in there will be gone. So if I click next, whole new world, let it go, circle of life, how far I'll go, make a man out of you, bare necessities, and then it wraps back around, and I can do this forever, and it's great. Play, next, and it's working exactly like we want it to, which is amazing. Now, as an exercise, I implore you, don't watch this next part of this, or pause it here. I want you to try and implement the back button, doing the exact same thing. Get some practice doing this. We'll call it const handle on previous song click. Oops. And I want you to do the implementation here. And then I'm going to stop this for a second and pause it here. Take some time. Try and implement this yourself. Come back. It should go backwards. And then I'll solve it in the next couple seconds. Okay, hopefully you've done that now. If you haven't, I totally understand. If you just want to watch me do it, that's also totally fine, but it is good to get some practice in. So I'm actually going to do almost the exact same thing here. I'm just going to copy this, and I'm going to paste it in this one. Now, the only difference here is that the logic changes in that since we're going in the opposite direction, we're no longer adding one to the song. We'll just subtract one, and then we'll say, hey, I don't want to check if it's longer than the list of songs. Since it's going backwards, I want to check if it's less than 0. And if it is, I want to wrap it around to the very last song in the list, which is props.playlist.songs.length -1. That's really all. And so then I take this and I add this onClick handler to the left arrow. And I save and I check it out and I go backwards and it works. And I go forwards, and it works, and I pause, and I don't pause. And this is getting really cool. So we're now at the point where our application is sort of working. At least it has the appearance of working, even though there's no actual music playing. Which, again, we could do, but I think we'll leave that out for the time being. But the next thing we should start talking about is, well, actually, no, first let's go ahead and add some click handlers to these tracks so that when you click on them, it plays the song we click on. Then we'll move on to adding songs to the playlist, and we'll wrap it up for this course.